Well, if you look at history, fiat currencies only last a certain amount of time. Our fiat currency system, which I suppose has basically been, well, sort of post-war because it was a fiddle under Bretton Woods. But when Bretton Woods fell apart, 52 years, 53 years of fiat currency, pure fiat currency. I think it's almost time now. It's now, I think, about to fall over. I mean, as I say, I don't know whether it's tomorrow or in a year's time or 2 years' time or 3 years' time, we'll see. But we will go back to credit being secured to the value of gold. And in order to do that, you need to have as much convertibility as possible from what becomes, instead of being a fiat currency, it becomes a gold substitute into gold, and vice versa. And a properly constructed gold standard basically means that nobody bothers about gold anymore, but the values are secured to it, which is the important thing. And you don't need to hold gold. You can actually hold the currency and use it productively. So, but the one thing that is necessary for this really to work is to have an economy which isn't dominated by government spending and has relatively low taxation. So there is the incentive for entrepreneurs to rush out and invest capital in production. And actually, this is precisely the situation in Russia. The debt to GDP in Russia, government debt to GDP, is in the order of about 21, 22%. And that's even after all this war spending. It's just remarkable. I mean, obviously, they've managed to achieve this because they sell an awful lot of oil and other commodity exports. But the other thing is that the level of taxation is a flat rate of tax of 13 to 15%. I mean, if you're really earning a lot, it's 15%. No more than that. Corporation tax, I think, is in the order of about 25%. So that's pretty normal, I suppose. So Russia doesn't have to do an awful lot to, in terms of evolving its economy in order to put it on a gold standard. It could do it tomorrow if it cared to do so. And it's very easy for a country which actually understands what it's doing to build its gold reserves and maintain them so that that cover is always there for the currency. And, in this article, which will be coming out, as you say, on Thursday, probably slightly before this comes out, actually explains the whole thing. I mean, it's very easy to do. But of course, the problem in the West is that governments don't like a strict, sound currency because it means they can't just sort of print it at will. They can't just finance their deficits at will. The politicians just want to spend. They don't want the constraints of the market. They don't want the constraints of gold. So, basically they will continue to spend us into bankruptcy. But Russia and China, for that matter, will need to protect themselves from our collapsing currency, because if our currencies collapse, any other fiat currency will go with it. I mean, because it's the whole of the fiat currency system, which is really well past its use-by date. So Russia, I think, is going to have to consider doing this. Now, of course, at the moment, everybody's talking about BRICS bringing in a gold-backed currency, which, of course, makes an awful lot of sense. But I mean, looking at the how that's developing. I mean, there are a couple of guys who actually aren't even appointed by any government agency. One Russian, one Chinese, makes you think that this was a government thing. No, they're just fund managers, actually. They've come up with this proposal called a unit. And it's clear from the way they've constructed, they don't understand the difference between money and credit. I mean, there's absolutely no mention in their paper about the interest rate which the unit will bear. I mean, it's got to have an interest rate, otherwise there's no point in having it. So you can see that there are big flaws in their arguments. It's not only that, it's not something that either China or Russia as governments have engineered, if you like, to put on an agenda in the big summit in October. And at the moment, they're all sort of, going around in circles, trying to sort of say, well, this is going to be difficult, because we want to have a basket of this and a basket of that. I mean, it's just complete nonsense. They will never agree it. So that's not going to happen. So from Russia's point of view, she's got to put herself on a gold standard. And then, I mean, it's actually very easy for a new trade settlement currency to be put on, to be created onto a gold standard. You could do that tomorrow. And I think the answer actually is, if they really want to do that, you don't sort of put it on the agenda or whatever. You create it and then you say, well, it's there if you want to use it. And they'll use it. It's quite simple. So I think there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation, whatever, about the whole thing. But I'm convinced that Russia will go on a gold standard because it is so definitely in her interest to do so, either as an aggressive weapon against the dollar, or more likely to protect the ruble from a collapse in the dollar. Because as I say, the dollar is in a debt trap. When we were in a debt trap back in the mid-70s, we were rescued by the dollar and the IMF. There is nothing to rescue the dollar. So from Russia's point of view, I'm sure she's already thinking in terms of a gold standard. Now, whether she implements it properly or not, of course, is another matter. Because you have the problem that central bankers got very jealous about the gold that they have accumulated in their reserves. They don't want to give it away to anyone, let alone their own population. So you can see that, there's some vested interests which have got to be overcome. But it's so simple, it really is. And as I say, my article just lays it out. Anyone who doesn't know how to do it, read the article.